Belinda Hunter here. Welcome back to my segment, The Write Life, where we talk about writing, getting published, and just giving you, tutorials on how to go about writing your book. Okay, my first segment, I talked about just writing. The first key to writing your book is just to write it. Transfer your ideas from here to paper, to your computer, or whatever. In my first segment, I talked more about possibly putting it on a computer versus the paper, because like when you put it on a computer, as ideas come to you on throughout the book and you need to go back, refer back to another chapter, you can copy and paste, or you can put space and add, versus if it's all on paper, you have to, like me, have sticky notes everywhere and then trying to figure out exactly where I wanted to put it. It's just a lot of confusion. It's easy, but still it's a lot of confusion. So I recommend, using your computer. And as I said in the first segment, always save every 5 or 10 minutes. Save your work so that it doesn't get lost on your flash drive. If your flash drive was to dysfunction, or if your computer was to crash, you'll have it saved, at least to your email it to yourself, save it on your flash drive, save it to your hard drive, but always email it to yourself as well, because the computer could mess up and you may not be able to get to your hard drive. So as I said in the first segment, the first thing to do is start in writing is to just write. Don't worry about the flow. Don't worry about whether it's making sense to you, because all that comes in the end, or, throughout the process. So don't worry, just write it. That's the first step. The second step in writing is creating your characters. Character creation is kind of tricky, and I made this mistake before, so I write notes all the time. That's why I say it's always good to keep sticky notes around, or paper, stuff to jot down things, especially key things with the characters, because I've wrote about characters before in the past, and throughout the book, which I found myself, before you readers even told me. I mean, no one even told me. I found it as I read the book. I jumped from one character to another character. It was the same person, but I just switched it up. So it's important to take notes and write down, especially key things you want to talk about with your characters. So if you in the book later, you can refer back to that. But creating your characters, what I do, okay, after I wrote my book, wrote down what I want my book to be about, my outline and all of that, I'll go back and then I create my characters and how important the characters are to the book. Some characters may just be a supporting character, where you have your key characters as well. So when I say just bring it to life, write about that character, if you want to give a little background about the character or whatever, just bring the characters to life. And then when you're writing certain things about the characters in the books, make sure you bring things full circle. Like, for instance, I had someone turn something into me. They wrote about, let's say the person's name was Joe. They said Joe went to the store. Okay. Is there a reason you mentioned Joe going to the store? In writing, when you mention something, you better be ready to make it a full story almost. I mean, just to say he went to the store, that's irrelevant. You didn't have to put that in the book. Is there a purpose of him going to the store? Why did you feel like we need to know that? Because this is not real life. We're trying to draw people in. We're trying to make people feel like they're in the story. So if you're going to write something like that, give it some relevancy, like Joe went to the store, he ran into so-and-so, and they had a conversation about so-and-so. You can tie in something that's happening in the story as to why you felt to mention that he went to the store. Just don't say Joe went to the store and leave it at that. Unless Joe and his wife or his friends were having a conversation and she just sent him to the store. But even then you're going to talk about that conversation prior to him going to the store. And then you can say, well, Joe left to go to the store. Then you don't have to say why Joe went to the store, because we already know why Joe went to the store. So there's a lot of things I think people do just to fill paper and just to write, But some things, especially in book writing, you don't need to do that. Everything needs to have substance to it. Some kind of substance to bring them in. And when creating your characters, like I say, make people feel like they're in the story. You have to know the key to being a good writer. You have to make people feel like they can visualize everything They can see everything that's in that story. You know, they can put themselves in it. You know, that is great. That's great. When you do that, you're on your way. And then another thing too, like as I said in the first part, researching and everything like that too. I kind of got off my course because I'm talking about creating characters. Oh, this was another thing I wanted to talk to you about too, because I've had people ask me about chapters and how do I go about creating my chapters. I am a writer that kind of writes to my own beat. I don't actually follow the rules, and I'm not saying this is not a rule, but this is just the way I like to write. I write from person to person. And like, for instance, okay, let's say, for instance, there was a fight that went on amongst 4 of my characters. The way I write, I tell it from each character's viewpoint. So like I may say, let's use Keisha, Mercedes, Q, and DJ. Let's use them. For instance, if there was a fight amongst those 4, and for those of you that hasn't read any of my books, those are characters in my first book, Waiting on My Queue, available on Amazon. Go get it, read it, enjoy it, leave me a review, and let me know what you think about it. But anyway, back to what I was saying. We're going to use Keisha, DJ, Q, and Mercedes. Say, for instance, they got into a fight. When I tell the story, okay, when I tell the story, I tell it from Keisha's viewpoint. I tell it from Mercedes' viewpoint. I tell it from Q's viewpoint, and I tell it from DJ's viewpoint. So that way we get into each of their minds and see what each of them was thinking, you know? So also that's how I break my chapters up as well. Because like chapter 1, it may start off as Keisha's viewpoint of what happened. Chapter 2, I go into Mercedes, you know, and so on and so on. And I'll break my chapters up that way. And a lot of you that's read my work, you know how I do. And then it may not necessarily follow the fight per chapter. Like chapter 1 may be Keisha's view on the fight and what all happened, what went down, what caused it, and this and that. Then chapter 2 may be on something else related to the book, like maybe a different character and what that character is going through. Chapter 3, I may go back to Q and what he's saying about the fight and his viewpoint and blah, blah, blah. Chapter 4 may relate back to another scenario that's in my book. So I'm going to say this. The first draft is you writing it from your mind to your computer or your paper. I mean, don't worry about the flow. Just write. Just write. Do not worry about, oh, this is not making sense. Just write, you know. And then further on down, as you read over it, you get more and more ideas and you see how, and you know, consult with people too if you need to. But I wouldn't recommend consulting with anyone until you're done writing. Because first of all, you want to get what's on your mind down on paper. And then if you want to go back and change or need to go back and change things, that's all right too. You do it then. But first, just write. Just write the book. Second, create your characters. Your characters are the most important thing in the book. Create your characters. Make them believable. Make people be able to see things from each character. So as you're writing, like I say, create substance. And you know, that way people can jump into each character and visualize from their viewpoint, etc. Okay? Okay, this is my second segment, and I'll be back with you next week. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I have people inboxing me and messaging me on Messenger a lot, asking advice about things. And I sound like a broken record since like I say the same things over and over. So I'm doing this so they can, come to my YouTube page. And it's free. It's free. The only thing I ask you all to do is if I'm helping you, share it, or, other people that's looking to write. Something's biting me. Looking to write, share it with them. Okay? I'm here for you. Have a nice day. Bye.